Alright, so I recently posted a kind of a poll in the community tab on my YouTube homepage. It was just a place for people to insert some questions because I had a Q&A upcoming. This is the Q&A, so let's start off answering some questions. Okay, first question is from Renegade Zen, who asks, what's the most you have made? I'm paraphrasing, but at the bottom it's exact. What's the most you've ever made in a 1-3 no limit session? Interesting that Renegade asks in 1-3 because my best session ever was 1-2 in Milwaukee in Potawatomi. It changed from 1-2 to 1-3 while I lived out there, but at the time it was 1-2, but Renegade asked for 1-3. So it is a profit of $1,708 in 11.93 hours. Almost 12 hours. I remember that day. That was in Council Bluffs in January 2019. Most of it came on one hand. That was the biggest pot I ever played was in that session. It was a 4-way all-in pre-flop. There was someone who had about $200, someone who had about $550, I had about $750, and someone who covered all of us who matched my $750. So those were the 4 stacks that went in: 200, 550, 750, 750, main pot, side pot, other side pot. I had aces. One guy had kings, one guy had 8s, one guy had 5s. No one improved. I held $2,200 pot, and that was the session that ended with plus $1,708. Peter asks, being a nomad, is there some place that you consider home? If I ever say the word home, I think I say it occasionally when I just mean like going back to my room at the end of the night, but usually if I say the word home, I mean New York, because that's where my parents live. That's where I spend like the holidays, like 4 to 6 weeks over the holidays, and there might, stay tuned, there could be an upcoming year where I don't feel like making the drive out here. I could see possibly next year maybe playing like Baltimore, Atlantic City, Southern Maryland, Philadelphia, Connecticut, each for like 6 weeks, like 4 to 6 weeks or so, kind of going back for like a month over the summer. In addition to like the winter break I take there, spending like a month over the summer, and then in like August going back out and doing the same thing. So a lot less driving. That's possible. Haven't done it. I did it during Corona because I was worried everything was going to shut down again. I didn't want to be that far away from my parents' house, so I went to Maryland, and most of my poker was in Maryland from like autumn 2020 through spring 2021. But then when I saw things weren't going to shut down again, then I went out to Vegas and WinStar in Oklahoma in 2021. But anyway, to answer the question, yeah, I would say New York. God is Good asks, favorite chips and cards ranked. I guess he means favorite. Didn't say just Vegas, so everywhere. The answer is in Vegas, but I did think about every place. I would have to say Sahara for both, because both get used so infrequently, because most days there's like one table going, that they stay very new and crisp. So chips get worn. So when you put your chips in the plastic rack, 20 individual chips should be in one stack. When they get worn, you could fit more. Orleans hasn't gotten new chips since the early 90s, and you could fit like 23, 24 chips in the rack. Even Aria, those chips are getting worn now. You could fit 21, sometimes 22 in the rack. When Bally's turned to Horseshoe, they got rid of the chips that said the word Bally's. The chips said Horseshoe. They were very new. They're starting to get a little worn. They're not like really, really new, like right out of the box. Saharas are still pretty good just because they get used so infrequently. The chips are very crisp. They're easier to handle, easier to stack. They make a nicer sound when you shuffle them. They just feel, I like the way they feel more. You might not. So I like those, and the cards for the same reason. The cards don't get worn as much. They're, if you're wondering, not jumbo, like normal font. And I was thinking about this. I don't know if I ever said it in a video. I know I say sometimes at the table, I don't like jumbo cards. The reason is not the font. I don't have a problem with the large fonts on the cards. It's what the font leads to. When the font is very big, you need to bend more of the card to see the card, like the rank and the suit. So when you need to bend it more, that means the cards have a shorter lifetime. And the casino doesn't like change them out so quickly. They want them to last as long as possible. So you like pretty quickly are playing with like pretty worn cards, and the casino tries to make them last forever. And sometimes like they don't bend all the way back, and that's pretty annoying. So I don't like what the font does to cards. If you had a deck of jumbo cards with the right plastic material and they bent back, I would have no problem with that. It's actually nice to have jumbo cards because a lot of people, sometimes they don't play at all. They'll like request a table, or you'll see their name on the board and it'll say like John, seat 5 only, like players have trouble seeing, and they can't be on the bends of the table. They need to be like right across from the dealer in order to see the cards. So with the jumbo cards, that's not a problem. Like, people aren't waiting, people aren't like sitting out just until they could get a seat where they could see more easily. So if that helps people play, I'm all for that. But they usually wear a lot more quickly. So I would say Sahara to answer God is Good's question. A more interesting question that nobody asked, but would be, what are your least favorite? I would need to say the cards at the Horseshoe Southern Indiana. I don't think it's called that anymore, but it's a riverboat in Elizabeth, Indiana. Last time I was there, it was a riverboat in Elizabeth, Indiana, on the Ohio River. Those cards are awful. They were jumbo, and this was exactly the case. You had to bend so much of the card to see it that they got to the point where they were like permanently warped. If you just had your cards flat on the table, the corners were bent up. Like, you could almost see someone's cards because it was bent so much. Like, that's bad. Like, you really need to change them at that point. I don't care how many decks you have to go through. Like, you can't be using cards where, like, the corners are curved so much that someone across the table might be able to see your card. Like, you need to really cap your cards and put chips on like all four corners to make sure it's flat. Like, that's ridiculous. Least favorite chips, I would say Borgata. And I think the same chips, I think I used them last year at Hawaiian Gardens. I played 10 casinos with Herbs and Ryan, California, March of last year. I don't remember every one. One of those rooms had the same chips. They're this material that make it very difficult for them to get dirty. Like, dirt doesn't stick to it, so they look very nice, but they're so slick that it's like impossible to shuffle. Not quite impossible. If someone is easily shuffling those chips, that person has played thousands and thousands of hours with those chips. It's not easy. Also, when there's a large pot and like the dealer pushes it, they don't stack up, they slide off each other. So like, a dealer pushes a large pot to you and the chips are like this very like shallow like pool of chips, and you have to like be very careful that like they're not like oozing into the player's stack to your right and your left, because you can't really get a good pile of them. It's like this like 1 or 2 chip height, but it's like very spread out left to right and front to back. So I don't like those chips, but you know, I deal with it when I play at Borgata, which isn't so much lately, but it was a lot in summer 2019. Anyway, most favorite and least favorite, there you go. And last question in this part of the Q&A series of videos, Greg asked a question about using comps for like unusual things. I think that was the question. He mentioned gas and cigars. I don't know where you're buying gas in the casino, but can't use them for cigars anywhere. MGM properties in Vegas, it's food only. Caesars properties, there's 3 things I know of that you can do: food, hotel rooms, or you can convert them to a slot play. So it's 2 steps if you want to cash them out. Convert them to a slot play, step 1, and then step 2 is play it through the slot machine, and that's how you can cash out your comps. Sahara, as far as I know, only restaurants. Golden Nugget, I don't know. Someone in the comments probably knows. I know Golden Nugget in Atlantic City, they don't have poker anymore. When they did, you could use it for hotel rooms. I don't know what Golden Nugget in Vegas is like, but my guess would be it's a Golden Nugget thing, not like a city thing. My guess would be it's the same. Maybe out here, you could use it for hotel rooms, but I don't know for a fact. Westgate, you could use them for food. You could use them, you could just cash them out. Same 2 steps. You could convert it to a slot play and then play it through the slot machine, cash it out that way. Link at the top of the screen if you missed that video that I made last year. Yeah, so it's usually just food, occasionally something else, but no, there's no place I know of where you could buy cigars. Can't do that in Caesars or Paris. They have cigar shops, but you can't pay with comps. And anything like really unusual, the most unusual thing I know of is hotel rooms. That's not really like such a far-fetched thought, but not every place allows that. Caesar's properties do. And remember, rice is a spoon food.